The idea that corporate jobs aren't physically taxing is a myth. In many cases, they're literally killing us. In almost all, they're taking an often invisible toll on our bodies, creating illness and injury through repeated assaults on our nervous systems. Ridiculous timelines, insane expectations, ever-changing market pressures, unstable economic forces. It's a lot. Hey, at least I'm not out there shoveling crap every day. Sure, but your body and mind and soul are still taking a beating. Sarah Dawkins experienced this firsthand during her career as a nurse. It nearly broke her, until a colleague helped her see a way through her chronic pain and depression. Today, she works as a holistic health coach and wrote a book called Heal Yourself that shows how she and many others have found a way to fully heal. My favorite insight, the idea that little t traumas can have just as much impact as major ones. The body doesn't lie. If something has caused us pain, it's going to affect us, often for decades. The only way out is through. Acknowledge the pain and heal the root cause. A great way to start is by simply sitting quietly and noticing what you're feeling in your body. Ask what those feelings are trying to tell you. Your inner wisdom is often smarter than the noise in your head. If all of this sounds a bit woo, I get it. I'm about the least woo guy you'll ever meet. But this stuff just makes sense to me. I've done some of the work, and it actually works. It's not magic. It's giving yourself access to a power that many of us have shut down for decades. If you're feeling that weight of the world right now, isn't it worth a try? Welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast, the show where we cut through the BS and find ways to make work more fun, more human, and less ridiculous. All of which makes your business more profitable, by the way. If you enjoy this one, please like, share, rate, review, or subscribe to the podcast. Let the desuckifying begin. Here's Sarah. Sarah Dawkins, welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast.
Thanks, TJ. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here.
It's wonderful to have you here. I'm excited to explore all of the good insights that you have for us today. And before we do that, I want to give you a chance to at least tell a short version of your story. What are you doing for work now, and how did you come to be doing it?
So now I'm a holistic health coach. But previously, I was a registered nurse for 20 years. So my beliefs, my core beliefs around health and healing were challenged by a nurse, which sent me on a whole research episode to find out why she would challenge me about using medicines at home that we use in the hospital. And the long story short, I found out how powerful our mind and body is and started working with that, healed a whole host of health problems myself that I'd had for decades, and stopped needing the medicine and decided that actually if I could do this, and I'm not that special, that anybody else could too. And so I felt out of alignment with nursing because I'd healed myself from so many things, and I couldn't go to work and follow doctor's orders and tell people to take the medicines when I'm living at home in this totally different life and lifestyle and not taking the medicines.
Wow. So what do you mind me asking, what were some of the health things you were dealing with while you were a nurse?
Sure. So I started with psoriasis, and then that moved on to eczema, acid reflux, candida. I had bulimia nervosa. I had depression. I had suicidal thoughts. I had an underactive thyroid. I burned out my adrenal glands. I had candida infection. And I think that's it.
Okay. Well, that seems like enough.
Chronic pain. I had chronic pain on and off.
Wow. So we'll get into some of the methodology that you're currently using to help people heal. What was it that helped you realize that whatever you had been doing, taking the meds and all that stuff, just wasn't going to provide the kind of healing you needed?
It was when one of my nurse colleagues at work challenged me about using pharmaceuticals at home. And I'd been a nurse in the UK, and then we'd moved to America, and it was an American nurse colleague. And I'm like, why would you say that? Because this is what nursing's all about. And my mum was a nurse. So, my life was just that medical model with doctors, hospitals, prescriptions, medications. That was my normal. And I didn't know anything outside of that until I was challenged.
Yeah, that is really wild that somebody within the system
Crazy.
would be, giving you a story that runs completely counter to that system. I mean, for you, I think about this through the lens of work. How much was working as a nurse, impacting your health?
Time when I first did my nurse training and qualified, I didn't actually see how it was impacting my health other than my lunch break. If I was on a late lunch, I was starving hungry. So I had a bit of low blood sugar and lightheadedness. And sometimes I needed to pee so badly, but I was with a patient and I just couldn't get to the bathroom until I'd finished with that patient. So that was really the only aspects of what I saw. It wasn't until I started my own healing journey, I realized the actual impact of it running just permanently in a stressed mode, because there was so much to do, so little time. And not only the doing of it with the patient, but then the documenting everything that I had done to make sure that people who came and relieved me, other nurses and health care assistants, could see what I'd done, even though I could tell them they could read what I'd done. And it was just like more stress, cortisol. But of course I didn't see that at the time because I'm just doing.
Yeah. And I imagine it almost felt normal because probably lots of folks around you were in the same boat, right?
Absolutely, yes. And it was normalized, where you can't have your break till later because there's too much work. You can't go for lunch because we've got an emergency. And it's, we didn't get paid for our breaks. We got paid for less than the time that we were at work because our breaks were taken out. And sometimes you just couldn't take your break. And then, so you've worked half an hour or an hour, depending on the length of your shift, for free.
Wow. I mean, what was this idea of stress at work? I think almost anybody listening is probably like, I get it. They may not be a nurse or working in healthcare, but wherever you work, there's a lot of stress, particularly these days. It feels like it's gotten even crazier. And it also sort of feels normal or even like a badge of honor at times. Like, my God, I'm so stressed at work. And it's like, it's a way of signaling like, I'm a hard worker. I'm a good worker. I care. And I think what underneath all of that I hear and feel is a little like we've just not really paid much attention to our bodies. It's just like, we just think there are these things here that are immune to the abuse that we may run them through. And I think we're starting to wake up to that. And I'm sure you're seeing people waking up or helping people wake up in some of the work you do. But I mean, what is actually going on? Like, what you mentioned cortisol, and I know that's a word that I think more people are becoming familiar with. That's like a stress hormone, I believe. But what's actually happening to our bodies when we're not treating it the way it needs to be treated?
Our bodies speak to us to let us know that it needs some introspection. And it speaks to us in the form of symptoms. And more often than not, I've got a headache, I'll just take a paracetamol. I've got an upset tummy, I'll take some Gaviscon, or you've got, is it the purple pill you've got in America?
Yeah, we've got like Prilosec or whatever.
That's the one, yes. Yeah. Oh, I've got a skin rash. Well, I'll just slap some steroid cream on it. And because these symptoms don't really cause us that much problem, that many problems, we take a pill or use a cream to stop the symptom, basically ameliorate the symptom. We're not healing the symptom. We're just stopping it so that we can carry on with our lives.
Yeah.
And this is stress induced, and chronic pain comes from stress. Yeah. And it comes from holding tension and unexpressed emotion in the body. So this is often manifesting in pain. And that was a lot of my pain. You know, I had neck and shoulder pain. Yeah. And actually the root cause of neck and shoulder pain is poor posture. But when I'm walking around all day, I didn't have the poor posture. The emotional, spiritual, metaphysical underpinning of neck and shoulder pain is the weight of the world on our shoulders. And that's what I was carrying with all that stress. Yeah. And, you know, I just had so much neck pain and shoulder pain and had head pain at one point, as in not so much headache, but like a pain across the top of my head. And it got to the point that I personally was just so overwhelmed with this head pain, I could barely get out of bed. And the doctor's like, take some paracetamol, some Tylenol. And I didn't like taking pills anyway. I've never liked really taking pills. And it's just, here's some paracetamol. I'm like, okay, I'll try it. Take it with ibuprofen. Okay, I'll try it. Because this head pain is so bad and my family's so worried. And it did nothing, not a thing. Wow. And I literally crawled down the stairs from the bed to the sofa and laid on the sofa the whole day, barely getting off it because the pain was just so intense. So the doctor's like, here's some different pills. You can only have them for 6 months because they'll kill your kidneys. I'm like, wow. But actually, at the end of the day, it was my body manifesting pain to slow me down, it's going, hey, Sarah, look, you need to stop and reassess what's going on in your life at work. I had no idea. And a lot of people are in the same boat. Yeah,
absolutely. I know plenty, and I'm sure I experience some of the pains I experience are, you know, probably coming from similar places. You know, the thing I wonder sometimes, right? Because I think about modern life. In some ways, modern life seems easy relative to the past when, you know, you're lugging farming equipment around or whatever we had to do in the past, or working in a factory all day. And yet it seems like so many of us are overloaded and stressed. You know, I think about my own work experience. I worked in advertising for many years, and it's just accepted that that's a very stressful business, really like tight deadlines, high expectations, both internally and externally from the clients you work with, and a lot of pressure that we end up putting on ourselves to do really great work that hopefully gets, you know, the job done. And I think in that space, you see, you know, a lot of drinking and drugs and things like that to kind of deal with stuff. I think as people get a little bit older and maybe they've moved past some of that stuff, if they've been fortunate enough, then I think a lot of the pain is showing up, and a lot of the symptoms that are probably just sort of, again, like, this is just what happens when I'm in my 40s or whatever. I just feel like my stomach's, you know, on fire half the day, or, you know, and you mentioned this word normalized, and it does feel normalized, but then there's also, I think, this awareness of something isn't right. How can we start to bring that awareness a little more front and center and start to recognize that not only is it not okay to be going the way we're going, but that it could potentially resolve some of the stuff that we may not even be realizing is connected to our stress?
I think just take a moment every day, maybe several times a day, literally like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, maybe, if you've got it. Yeah. Doesn't have to be a long time, and just stop and breathe. I mean, if you close your eyes, you actually help shut your nervous system down a bit. So you take some of the stress away by closing your eyes. by deep breathing, and just do like a head to toe body check-in. How does my body feel? Is there any part of me that feels different? Maybe it's heavy or darker or painful or an altered sensation. And just check in, what's going on in that part of my body?
Yeah.
What is my body trying to tell me? Because our symptoms really are messages from our body, but we're so dissociated from them that we'll just take a pill or use a cream, as I said, and just stop the symptom. And healing isn't about stopping the symptom, because when we use a pill or a intervention or a cream, we're basically telling our body, I don't want that symptom. Here's the whatever to stop that symptom. So our body goes, let's find a different way to show her that we're trying to talk to her. So it'll either ramp up the symptoms or it will start off different symptoms. So you're like, oh, well, I've healed, that rash has gone, but wow, I've got this awful pain instead. And your body will just get more and more intense because you're basically saying, shh, I don't want to hear you. Stop that symptom with this pill or this cream.
Yeah.
So if we can take that moment and just check in with our body and literally say to it, what are you trying to tell me? Thank you for showing me this symptom.
Yeah.
And what is it that you're trying to say? Because a lot of people, and I used to be all like, oh, I've got this rash and it looks awful and I wish I could get rid of it. And it's almost like we turn to anger and frustration and resentment for our symptoms.
Yeah.
But it's our body's only way of talking to us. So if we can flip that 180 and come at it from a place of love rather than a place of anger, love heals all. So if we can come back and go, thank you for showing me that symptom, that pain, that rash, that upset stomach. What are you trying to say to me? And just listen, because the wisdom is there. And for some people, it's like, that's just a bit too woo.
Yeah.
But actually, if you do stop and feel into it, there is definitely a message there.
So, yeah, and I can understand how some folks might think it's a bit woo. And I have a little bit of that resistance. I feel it in myself. I think I generally understand and appreciate where you're coming from, and it makes sense to me. And I think, yeah, I can see how that would be a way that the body is trying to communicate something to us. So then my brain goes to, okay, how would I tune into what it's actually trying to say? Like if my stomach's bothering me for a week and I get curious and I go, okay, what are you trying to tell me? I mean, right now I feel completely unable to know like how to listen. So what does listening look like? And
most of us are like that because it's a skill.
Okay.
And until you start doing it, because when I was advised to start doing it, I'm like, what do you mean talk to my body? And we've all got a voice inside of us. What name we give it depends, but it doesn't matter what name. Some people will call it inner wisdom. We've all got that inner wisdom.
Yeah.
Some people will call it higher self. So like I'm talking to my higher self. Some people will call it God, the angels, the universe, the spirit. The name really isn't important.
Okay.
But the majority of us have actually detached ourselves from that inner wisdom, and we've all got it.
Yeah.
And when we've detached ourselves from it, it's more challenging to come back in and listen because that inner voice is really quiet and it's not emotional. It's matter of fact.
Okay.
If it's shouting, if we ask a question and we hear shouting with emotion in our heads, that's our ego because it's emotional and it's shouting. This little voice inside of us that knows everything is our inner wisdom.
Wow.
And it's about tuning back into that.
So that's interesting as you describe that. I imagine most of us are very familiar with the ego voice. I mean, when you talk about having an inner voice, I think that's what most of us are picturing, right? Because the inner voice, the inner critic, the sort of soundtrack of our day is emotions and it's judgment and it's harsh very often, or it's reactionary. And so this quieter matter of fact voice, I mean, just for myself, I'm going, I think I occasionally hear it, and the way I'm thinking of it is probably akin to wisdom. That was one of the words you used, or even intuition.
Yes.
That felt sense that something isn't quite right, or that something is good for us and we're being drawn to it. But what helps us listen to that and at least temporarily quiet the louder nagging voice?
It's practice. It really is.
Yeah.
Practice. And the more you just take those moments and just check in, the more in tune with that inner voice you will become. And quite often when you stop and close your eyes and just breathe and feel and ask the question, what is your message? Quite often it'll come to you so quickly like that. But it'll be so quiet, and sometimes it can even come before you've finished your sentence. It's like this. And then you're like, second guessing it. Did I really hear that? And you start doubting yourself. But actually, that's our inner wisdom speaking, because it's just so prompt. So don't second guess it. Just accept what you hear. But to differentiate it from the ego is literally loud and it's in your head. The words that we hear from our ego, although they're in our voice in our head, they're not our words. They are words from our childhood, whether it was parents, teachers, grandparents, caregivers, school, Sunday school.
Yeah. When
we hear those words from our childhood, you're no good at it. I've given you this symptom because you need to do better, or, you're worthless, or you're not good enough. These are not our words. They're words that we are recycling from our past into our present.
Yeah.
So know that if you're hearing those words basically telling you you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you're not confident, you don't have the right to be healthy and well, know that they're not your words, even though they're in your voice. They've come from your past, and your ego is just throwing them out as a protection mechanism, in air quotes, because it's trying to protect us from like similar things that happened in our childhood. We might not have the memories, but our subconscious remembers everything. So it knows what happened, and it knows the emotions that we felt when whatever happened to us. And in order to protect us, it throws out these words, these negative things, as a way of, it's basically trying to protect us by saying you're not worthy, or not confident enough, or you're not good enough. So stay in your comfort zone. Don't step out of it. Stay there because it's familiar. Stay in that pain because you know what it feels like. Don't step out into the unfamiliar because it's scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
But actually, when we can do that and step out into the unfamiliar, it starts to become familiar. And we gain confidence in doing so.
Yeah. That definitely rings true for me. You can almost feel the shrinking of yourself with some of that inner stuff, and that protective barrier come up. And what I noticed for myself, and I'm curious if this is true for a lot of others, I feel some of those words, and there's a bit of, I want to call it just cognitive dissonance. Like, I don't want to exist feeling like I'm bad or stupid or whatever. And so then I go into like a rapid fire problem solving spiral, basically. I'm trying to think my way out of this. And I think what I've started realizing probably a little bit later in life is it's really hard to think your way out of any of that stuff. I mean, it feels more like you need to move through it or do your way out of it versus think. And I imagine maybe some of that is listening to that quieter voice so that you know what you need to do, where you need to go, what movement outside of the safe zone is the right one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that thinking keeps you in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a protective mechanism that you learned so that you don't have to feel what's going on in your body.
Oh, yeah.
So when you understand that, I'm thinking so I don't have to feel, you can stop for that moment and then drop into your body and out of your head.
Yeah.
Ask, what's going on? What do you need? What are you trying to tell me?
Yeah.
And just be still and just listen.
It's a really good point. I think I definitely like to stay in my head. That's been my MO for most of my life. And it's to the point that when I first started hearing terms like going into your body or experiencing what your body is feeling, I literally didn't understand what that even meant. I go, my body's my body, but my head's where all the stuff, that's where the action is.
Yes.
What are you talking about? And it's more recently that I've started to play with that. And to be quite honest, at times it can be really scary because you're like, I don't like these feelings. I don't want to hear what it's telling me because I'm afraid of what it might tell me. And I think, all of the things in modern life that we have to distract us feel like extensions of that same problem, right? It's like, yes. I don't want to feel anything. So I'm going to be on my phone. I'm going to be playing a game. I'm going to be watching Netflix for 6 hours straight or whatever, because it is so uncomfortable to actually feel ourselves. I was talking with somebody a little while ago and they were talking about a lot of people have been doing these kind of physical health challenges, like 75 workouts in 75 days or something like that, those kinds of things. And I thought, what would it be like to try something similar, but with this practice you're talking about of, spending every day each month, spending 5, 10, whatever minutes, just sitting and feeling. And that seems
how radical is that?
What's that?
How radical is that?
It is. It's crazy, right? Because it sounds like it shouldn't be radical, and yet it also sounds terrifying. And I think it sounds like maybe it sounds a little woo too. But what I found is whenever I do that, and I can't say I've done the full practice of doing it every day, but when I just, sometimes I'll just go outside and I'll just sit for 10 minutes and I go, what in the world am I feeling? And it actually ends up usually taking a few minutes because it starts with my brain just kind of saying things and thinking through. And it's like, okay. And I can get pretty good at like, okay, I'm noticing some interesting tingling in my calves or this. What I don't think I've quite mastered the art of yet is that turning that questioning of, what are you trying to tell me and really getting my tuning to a place where I'm like, oh, that's what I need. And so is it simply just a repeated practice, or are there ways that you can practice that make that tuning more likely to happen?
In reality, it's just practice. The more you do it, the better you get at it, the more you're able to listen to your body, talking through your inner wisdom.
Yeah.
It really is so simple, if you like, in air quotes, but it's when you're not used to doing it, it takes some practice. And I think you've rightly said, our lives are so busy.
Yeah.
We are so distracted that we don't take those moments. It's like, I've got nothing to do. What shall I do? I'll go on the computer. I'll go on my phone. I'll watch the telly. And we fill the moments. But if we can just be mindful, whether we sit and just look at our environment and just look at it in awe, wow, how magical is life?
Yeah.
We came from two cells, one from our mom and one from our dad. And look, we've formed into this body with all these intricate systems. And just look at nature with just awe and wonder. And we could just be mindful like that, which also helps us to drop into our body because we're being in that present moment.
Yeah.
So we're seeing with our eyes, but we'll also be feeling and becoming aware of more of what's going on inside of us, or we can just drop into our body.
Yeah.
A really good exercise I do like is from the Heart Math Institute. And it's imagine breathing into your heart space. We know we breathe in and out of our lungs, but imagine breathing into your heart space and then imagine breathing out from it. And if you can do that 2 to 5 minutes once a day, at a minimum, but more, it puts all of our systems into what's called coherence. So rather than your heart beating at one rate and your blood pumping around, not your blood pumping around, but maybe the electricity in your nerves going at a different rate. And it's like, rather than having all these wobbly lines, it makes these beautiful oscillating lines on an ECG, if you will, or an EEG from the head, but they're all coherent. So they're all moving at the same time, which is really calming for the body. Because a lot of us are so stressed out and we're on our last nerve ending and we don't even see it, feel it, or know it. Whereas if we can just take these moments, these brief moments every day, it just helps us to come back into ourselves, but it also helps relax us, relax our systems, which reduces inflammation.
As you were talking about all the distraction and all that stuff, I found myself, I want to say, almost getting angry at the current, what they call the attention economy, right? And it's everything fighting for our last bit of attention, and just how harmful that is. And how, when you were talking about all the distractions, I was like, we can't even go to the bathroom without our phones. We can't do the most basic functions without some means of distraction. We can't sit at a dinner table, for very long, or, we used to have the ability to at least, we maybe didn't like it, but, kind of be bored. Maybe sitting on a train ride and it's like staring out the window, and you might be like, oh, this is a little boring, but you found your body kind of found a way to sync with that experience. And I think as you were describing some of those rhythms, that was coming to my head, that our experience, our behavior is not always aligned with the experience that we're trying to have. Meaning, if we're simply, I'll use the train example. If I'm sitting on a train ride, there's kind of just a nice rhythm to that. But if I'm sitting there either frantically just doom scrolling or I'm working on my thing, it's like I'm at odds with my physical environment, which then it makes sense to me as you described sort of the internal thing. It's like, oh, maybe my nervous system is doing something weird where my blood's maybe pumping at another level, and then my respiration rate is doing its own thing. And, I know there's other rhythms in the body too. It's just, so I can feel what you're talking about, even if I don't fully know all the science behind it. But then I just think well, how do we, you talk about creating some of these practices. Is that it? Is that the work? Because I think it can feel so daunting to be in this space where everything's fighting for our attention. And then you look at the work world, which I spend a lot of time talking about, and not only is it fighting for our attention, but it continues to sort of speed up and downplay the value of quiet moments and time for thinking and reflection, even though those things are actually good for work outcomes. So is it simply taking the 5 to 10 minutes a day and listening to our bodies, or is there ways to even deepen this practice? And how do you ultimately end up working with people who are facing all of this?
We can do that. And if we haven't got the time, or we're in an environment where we just can't stop, period, and close our eyes and whatever, we can just deep breathe. Just do some conscious breathing. There's box breathing, which is a breathe in for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, out for a count of 4, and hold for a count of 4. So every side of the box is 4. And just slow the breathing down. Or we can just, wherever we are, even driving or on the train, or even while we're working, we can just slow our breathing down. Because when we're stressed, we tend to breathe from the very top of our chest. it's shallow and it's rapid, and it actually causes stress.
Yeah.
Whereas if we can deepen that breathing, we're still at our computer, we're still thinking, but if we can take those conscious breaths, it slows our breath work down, our breathing rate down, but it also relaxes us more. Because it's our breathing is connected to our vagus nerve. It runs by our lungs. And when we breathe, we affect the vagus nerve, which affects our organs. And it just slows everything down. So just simply conscious breathing. Most people aren't even aware of their breath rate. They'll just know that they breathe automatically and never give it a second thought. But if you can make your breathing conscious and just check in, how am I breathing without changing anything? And is my breath shallow and rapid? Can I slow it down? Can I take deeper breaths into my abdomen, like belly breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, whatever name you want to call it, but slow and deep. And that will simply reduce stress. Because you're now putting yourself into that more relaxed state.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you're liking what you hear and like the idea of making work not suck, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. What's the one thing bugging you the most at work right now? Let's talk about it. Okay, back to the show. So I have two thoughts on that. One of which is my own experience with noticing my breathing sometimes is that it actually can stress me out. And here's why I think this is going on. I notice my breathing. Then I sort of try to quote unquote fix my breathing. And it becomes like I'm working at it as opposed to, when you describe it, I'm like, well, that sounds very pleasant. And I can just slow down. But sometimes like my head wants to get involved and goes, am I doing it right? Am I breathing at the right rate? Am I going deep enough? Is it fully getting into my diaphragm? Like that over analytical part of the brain shows up and is, I guess my question to that part is, what can quiet the voice in that moment and allow me to just experience the sensations of breathing?
Just tell yourself you're okay, you're safe.
Yeah.
There is no right and wrong. You just flow, just allow your breath to flow into and out of you. If counting helps, it can distract your brain because you're counting the beats as you're counting in, then hold it and then out, or just in and out, and see if you can get the breath longer and slower so you're counting less. I've slowed my breath down to 6 breaths per minute.
Wow.
By just counting really slowly. As long as you're not breathing rapidly, just allow your breath. There's no right or wrong. If you can count to 10, if you can count to 6, if you can count to 20, none of it's right or wrong. It's just allow it to be what it is. And the more you can allow, the slower you'll be able to slow your breathing down to.
Yeah.
And the slower you breathe, the more relaxed you will be. And it's just, we're trying to intellectualize it. Am I right? Am I wrong?
Yeah.
There is no right or wrong. There just is.
I know. I know that I get into that space. I definitely intellectualize a lot of things. Like I'm a head person, as I would describe it to people. I live in my head a lot. And I know a lot of other folks. And I also think, and this may be really true in American culture, but maybe Western culture more broadly, the idea of there being a right or a wrong is very ingrained in our minds. From, the first grade we are in school, we're sort of trained, and probably earlier than that, just from some of the stuff we hear from our own parents or from the culture, right or wrong, good or bad, this or that, all that stuff. So by the time we reach adulthood, everything feels like, well, it should either be right or wrong. And so when you say something like it just is, it almost short circuits the brain for a second because, well, how could that be? Everything is either good or bad. No, I really appreciate what you're saying because even just hearing it is calming, just hearing that. But it feels like that's also part of the practice to just release the belief that there is a right or wrong in simply how we are or how we're existing in that moment. But that feels like that's a bit of a practice too.
It is. And it's about acceptance. It is. I love the saying, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But it will become what you make it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that.
Which then puts the responsibility back onto you. Well, what am I making it? Can I allow it to just be what it is? Or what am I trying to make it into?
I love that.
And that's when you get your shoulds. I should do this. I should do that.
Gosh.
No, just allow it. It is what it is.
Yeah. I really like that added bit of, what will I make it become? Because I like it. It is what it is as well. Some people have issue with it because it feels like I'm giving up or whatever. And what you're saying is no, in the moment, accept what is, and then you get to choose how you move through whatever is. And that feels empowering to me. And it even feels, you mentioned shoulds, and I speak about this too sometimes, that should is just like that. It's that ego voice, and it's the, I should do this. And we feel a lot of the weight of the world and society and expectations. And I like the idea of just shifting that from should to want. What do I want in this situation? And it's amazing how guilty we can feel about trying to connect to what we want, as though I don't have any right to want anything. I need to do what I'm supposed to do, what is right. So I love the framework you're giving there, because it feels like it opens the door to not what should I do now, but what do I really want? What would a joyful experience of this moment look like? And then how do I create that? Yeah, that's really fascinating. I love that. I want to touch on your book for a minute, because I see it there in the background, and the book, Heal Yourself. I imagine it's touching on a lot of the stuff that we've been starting to touch on here, but overall, what is the message of Heal Yourself, and what are you hoping that people are able to take away from the book?
The biggest message is believe in yourself and your ability and your body's ability to heal you. And healing starts with belief. If we believe we can, we actually can. But if we believe we can't, we absolutely won't.
Right.
And the people who translated it into different languages, 3 different people, all said it's so inspiring to help me believe that I can. Well, they extrapolated it out as I can do what I want to do. I just have to believe that I'm able to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, with healing, it's more about I believe my body can heal me, and I'm going to support it to do so.
That's fascinating to me, because as I hear it, I imagine some folks might be, that feels a little woo, meaning the idea of, if I believe it, I can do it. And yet, at least from what I've read, there's some science behind this, that the mindset we adopt and the beliefs that we adopt actually affect our ability to do the things we want to do. And I think it's really easy to imagine on the negative side. If I don't think I can do something, I can see how that's just going to completely block me from it. But the other side feels more interesting and open to me, like, okay, adopting a belief that I can heal myself. I can, whatever it is, become stronger, become a better communicator, whatever the thing is I want in my life. What is going on there that when you adopt the belief, it becomes truly possible? Do you have a sense of what's going on there in the body and in the mind?
From my perspective, there's a few different things. There's an energetic. I believe I can. So I put that energy out to the world that I can.
Yeah.
And therefore I will see reflected back to me that I can. Because that's what I believe. That's what I'm putting out to the world. I can.
Yeah.
But also the mindset of I can helps me to step into the unfamiliar. I step out of my comfort zone into the unfamiliar. And that's where I was at when I had the depression with suicidal thoughts. As the suicidal thoughts stopped, I realized the only way I could heal was stepping into the unknown all the time to heal that depressed mood, to do more of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, it was absolutely anxiety provoking. And
sure.
I literally shook as I left the house. My body was vibrating, but I'm like, I know I can do this. I believe I can do this. My body's vibrating because it's like my comfort zone was so tiny.
Yeah.
So I'm stepping into the unfamiliar. So it's that mindset. Once we make our mind up that I can do this, we will follow through and find ways to do whatever it is that we want. But if we listen to those internal voices that said, who do you think you are? You're not worthy. I mean, I had one that said, you're not a writer. You're not an author. Who do you think you are? You're never going to write a book. And I'm like, wow. And I believed it. And I put my book away for 5 years on my laptop, never touched it, never opened it again. Because I listened to that voice that said, I can't. But one day I woke up and I'm like, I can and I have to. And that's what propelled me forward. So there is a negative voice in there if you've heard that in your past.
Yeah.
It's a case of understanding that those words are not mine. They were planted into my mind from childhood.
Yeah.
And as an adult, I now get to choose. I don't have to listen to other people's opinions of me, which is what these voices are. They're people's opinions.
Yeah.
And just to touch back on the should, I should do this because somebody else's opinion said I should, or I have to, or I need to. So if we can let go of the should and come back to choose, as you said before, we get to choose. So we can choose what it is that we want to step into.
How did, you mentioned, some really heavy depression and suicidal thoughts. What helped you move through that?
The knowledge that I knew I could heal myself because I'd healed so much previously. So I had tangible results from tweaking my diet and lifestyle in my body and healing. I didn't know how I was going to do it because when you're in a depressed episode, your frontal cortex, the thinking part of your brain, shuts down. So it's like wading through mud. It's so deep and dark and slow, and you're trying to make sense of things, and your thinking's just not in the right place. But I just knew that I would heal. And it was at least a year, maybe even 18 months later, I'm still not really knowing what I'm doing because I'm still struggling, thinking through this treacle, if you like, this mud.
Yeah.
But intuitively, I started looking for things to have gratitude for and be mindful of. So for a year or 18 months, I was like just this dark cloud. Because we had dogs, I had to walk the dogs when my husband was at work and children were at school.
Yeah.
So I had to walk the dogs, and I would just look down at the pavement. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to speak to anybody. And I'm just in this dark, deep abyss. And then one day I looked up, just intuitively. I don't know why, just something, look up, and there was buds on the trees, and there was spring flowers, and there was a brook down the side of the path that I was walking on. They'd all been there all the time, but I just hadn't seen them for so long because it was just in this dark, dark space. So I intuitively looked and how pretty is that? So I started being mindful, as in being in the moment, in the walk, as I was walking, being aware of the sounds, the smells, the sights, and just looking for things to have gratitude for. The flowers are beautiful. I see a tiny speck of blue sky in the grey because it was in the UK and there's a lot of grey sky.
Sure.
And just having gratitude for the smallest of things. And it was probably 6 months after I started doing that I realized what I was doing. It was like I did it intuitively, unconsciously, And then suddenly I realized what I was doing. So then I started doing more of it. And then my mood started lifting because of this. And then I started doing some meditation. And initially it was like literally 5 minutes. That's all I could do. I tried sitting on the floor with the thumbs and the because that's what I thought. Never meditated before. That's like, how do you meditate? Well, I think you do this with the eyes shut. And I'm like, I've got all these voices running through my head. That is not working for me.
Yeah.
So I've found some meditations on the internet, just literally 5 minutes, somebody's voice that I liked, just to find peace inside and to just slow down and find that internal peace. And then I dared to start looking to the future. What do I want my future to look like? And I dared to start thinking about leaving the hospital, setting up as an entrepreneur, not being just any old entrepreneur, because I was still healing my past where I was told I'll never be anything. So I needed to be an award-winning entrepreneur, but not just an award, a multi-award-winning entrepreneur, I've got to heal this. But in the meantime, while I'm healing, I need to get all these awards and do all these certificates and courses and just to prove that I'm worthy.
Yeah.
So that then helped me step out of that depression. And setting up my own business, I had to then step outside and go to networking events and start applying for things online and doing things that I've never done before. And this was when I was literally shaking in my boots, going to these meetings, speaking to these people. But the more I did it, the better I got at it because it became familiar. So now my comfort zone's growing. So it was I knew I could heal. I believed I could heal, had no idea what I was going to do. And it was a year or 18 months down the line when I finally started looking outside of myself. Wow. But it's just that absolute ultimate trust in my body's ability to heal, because I'd healed so much up to that point that I just kept trusting every day that I would heal and I would find a way. And I did. Took me a while because I didn't know about coaches and help and support.
Yeah.
And when you're in that depressed state, the last thing you're going to do is go, help me, I'm depressed.
Gosh, yeah,
you're just like,
that's terrifying in that moment. Yeah. Or it almost feels pointless. Like, nobody can help me, I mean, what I hear in what you're saying, it's an amazing story. The two things that stuck with me are, one is this like connection and trust of your intuition, that you sort of held that all the way through this. And the other thing that kind of jumped out at me a little bit, both in your initial experience walking the dog and then even as you were stepping out and shaking as you were trying to build your business and go to these meetings, is that there seems like there's some value in having a thing that we feel some sense that we need to do it. Meaning, I needed to walk the dog every day. I need to go to this meeting. The sense, something to pull us a little bit out of ourselves when we really need it, feels really useful. And I wonder, can that be created? Or does it just need to be there? I think about the dog, right? So the dog's already in your home. It's already part of the family. And it's already part of the structure of your day with the family, that I'm the only one who can walk it. If you didn't have that in that moment, is there a thing you could do like that could replicate that you create? And would you even be in a position to do it? How does that piece of it work?
That would be more challenging because without the dog, I didn't need to go outside.
Yeah.
But being outside in itself is revitalizing, is soul nourishing. Being outside in green space is really healthy and healing.
Yeah.
So for anybody that's struggling, that hasn't got a dog, to get them outside, I would say try and make yourself walk outside. Choose where you want to go. You can put your head down. You don't have to interact with anybody.
Yeah.
But just make yourself walk. And walking itself helps healing. It helps the body. It helps regulate the nervous system. You could do some slow, deep breathing. The thing with healing is nobody can do it for you.
Yeah.
You have to do it yourself. People can support you and help you, but they can't do it for you.
Yeah.
So all of your healing comes from inside you.
Yeah.
So if you really want to heal, you have to put in some effort. It doesn't just happen. It takes effort. And that effort comes down to choice. I choose to get out of bed. I choose to walk outside. I choose to drink all this wine and alcohol in the nighttime, but it's helping me. And, you know, when I become conscious of what I'm doing, I will then stop.
Yeah.
Which was a big part of my own sickness and healing as well. I've relied on alcohol as a crutch.
Yeah.
But it's about becoming conscious of what we're choosing. I'm choosing to not go outside. I'm choosing to not eat.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to drink alcohol all evening in excess. When we can stop and become conscious of that, then we can consciously make better choices. It's like when we know better, we can do better. But until we know better, we can't do better.
Yeah. I mean, even as you say that, I think of how unconscious so much of modern life feels at times. And I hear that from people I work with, and I feel that in myself. I mean, I was feeling that as we turned into the new year. I was kind of like, I don't want to just drop back into my patterns, you know, because I think I was feeling that sense that they feel almost unconscious at a point that you just now swept along and just doing your routine. I was like, no, I want to make some new choices. And I love that idea of just becoming conscious of what we're doing. I think it's really easy to not be conscious. And then there's so many things that distract us, to your point earlier,
yes,
that even keeps us further removed from those choices. I wanted to come to something that I know you've mentioned, I think in your book and elsewhere, just the idea of root cause for a lot of the problems we're dealing with. I mean, when you say something like root cause, is it a lot of what you're talking about, meaning the voices in the head that were rooted in childhood learned behavior and learned beliefs? Is that what the root cause means in that instance?
That's part of it.
Okay.
So a lot of our symptoms come from emotions that are trapped in our body.
Yeah.
Through my book, I've devised 4 pillars of health and healing.
Okay.
So there's the mental, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual.
Okay.
And so the physical health is what most people think of. And that's where I started as a nurse. That's all I could see is the nutrition, the hydration, the exercise, the sleep. But then the mental health, some people think about that, is the gratitude, mindfulness, meditation, dropping into your body, taking those moments. When you do that, you can tap into the spiritual side, which is about reconnecting with that little voice inside of you. For some people, spiritual can mean religious. It can mean going to a spiritual group. It can be about the community around you and shared beliefs. It's whatever you want to give it meaning. But the biggest key is the emotional key. And I didn't learn that until I actually trained as a coach. And that's about healing your past, because our past, our issues sit in our tissues. I can't remember who coined that phrase, but I love that because we really do hold trauma in our body and it manifests as pain or rashes or digestive problems or inflammation or cardiac problems or respiratory problems or nerve problems. You know, there's so many: chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, chronic pain, eczema, psoriasis. All of these are literally stress related. And the stress comes from holding the emotional traumas of our past. Now, when we talk about trauma, we can think the big traumas like physical trauma, mental trauma, sexual trauma, and emotional trauma, and those really big things and the really awful things.
Yeah.
But actually, when we talk about trauma, there's also that when I was a child, I was pushed to the back of the queue and my sister was put in front of me, or I was called awful names and my best friend wasn't, or I thought the teacher picked on me and made fun of me in class. All of those can cause us trauma. It's about how we perceived it as that child.
Wow.
And then we held that. We held on to that, and that's still within us.
Yeah.
So that's what we call trauma with a little t. It's not the big physical, emotional, sexual, whatever that was done to us. It was just the little things. But we perceived that as really bad, and it hurt us so much. It embarrassed us, or we felt so guilty, or we were shamed. And we hold on to that, and that issue sticks in our tissue until we address it. And ultimately, it's within us, held through the eyes of the child that we were, without the knowledge and skills that we've got now as adults. So it's held in that really childish, he made fun of me, he made me feel so bad, and it's like, and that child within us is still holding that. And that frightened, embarrassed, shamed, guilty, emotional little child is still within us as the adult.
That's amazing.
And a big part of emotional healing is addressing that little child that felt all those awful emotions.
Yeah.
And is still holding on to them.
I really like how you frame that, the little t trauma idea, because I think it's certainly true for myself that, when I am currently experiencing any kind of emotional stress or strain, and maybe that is showing up in some of the pains in my body, and I have this awareness of how much our childhood can impact us. And I kind of go, well, I had a pretty good childhood. That's my broad experience of childhood was like, I had two loving parents, a nice home, good schools, some good friends. Like overall, I go, I really had it pretty good. But what you're tuning into there and you're pointing out is certainly something that I feel, meaning I have vivid memories of the kinds of experiences you're talking about. Those little moments of when you were being made fun of, or something happened, or you got hurt by something. And the way I've always framed it is I'm a really sensitive person, and maybe I am. I don't know. If there was a scale of sensitivity, I might be on the high end. But I also then attach a little bit of guilt and shame to that. Like, I shouldn't be so sensitive, and therefore I shouldn't feel any kind of lasting trauma, even with a small t, based on the fact that, somebody made fun of me when I was in first grade, and yet it feels like it is there. And so I appreciate you bringing that to the foreground, because I imagine a lot of folks are in a similar boat to me. And then the thing that I wonder, you mentioned like addressing that stuff. What does that look like? How do I address the fact that I'm hanging on to some of these small t traumas from when I was younger?
The biggest thing that you could do is acknowledge it, as you just have now. So that already has softened something within you, that you've acknowledged that. And I've had clients like yourself that said, I had loving parents and I had a great school and I had no traumas whatsoever. And then they've come back the following week and went, do you know, I went away and thought about that. And actually I had this happen and this happened and this happened and this happened. I'm like, I knew it, because of the symptoms you're expressing.
Yeah.
Screaming trauma.
Yeah.
And our memories are so selective. So simply acknowledging that I was made fun of, I was made to feel guilty, I was made to feel ashamed, I was embarrassed. All of that is that little TJ, that little Sarah inside is still holding on to that.
Yeah.
So we can do some what we call inner child healing. And that literally is addressing that child within us that's still holding on to those little t traumas.
Yeah.
And it is about talking to your inner wisdom, because our inner wisdom knows everything.
Yeah.
And it's literally just a case of putting your hand on your heart, breathing into it and saying, little Sarah, I know what you went through, and it wasn't your fault. It was the people around you, and they didn't have the skills and knowledge that you have now and understanding. They didn't know how they would hurt you, and you would hold that for the rest of your life. You're safe now and I love you. And we have to reparent that inner child within us. And we become the parent that we needed, or we become the adult that we needed, because maybe something happened in school, so our parents weren't there and we needed a teacher to step in and reparent us, and they didn't. So we can reparent that young child within us who's still holding that shame and guilt and embarrassment and trauma, and just tell them that they're safe and they don't have to go through that anymore, and they're loved and they're worthy. So we are being the parent that we needed at that time when those things happened that we then held on to.
That's a really nice way of putting it. And I can picture going through that process. Like, that feels like a very relatable, it feels easy to connect to that, showing up as the parent for that child you were that still sits with you. And I even think of it like, people will often describe they don't always feel like their age. Like, I'm 55 and sometimes I'm walking around feeling like I'm 30, whatever. But I realize that there are times when I'm walking around and I feel like I'm 5 or I'm 10. It's just like certain situations like immediately pull you back into this space. I mean, for me, it might be, I was a really shy kid. And so if I walk into a business conference and there's 250 people in a room, I'm 6 years old. I'm in first grade again. I'm walking in like, oh God, I don't want to talk to anybody, even though I'm very comfortable communicating with people now. It's just that experience is somehow still within me enough that it awakens with the stimulus of whatever event it is. And so it's really interesting how quickly that can be brought to the surface, these different parts of our past. So I appreciate how you break it down and how you provide what feels like at least a loving and not complex, I guess is the word, framework for dealing with it, or not, to use that word woo, like it doesn't feel so esoteric to me to say, like, simply be a parent for the child in yourself that hasn't had a chance to heal. Like, maybe some people might think that's a little woo, but what I think of is like, that I can do that. That feels very relatable. Yeah.
And it is in that situation where you walk in and you feel your 6-year-old child.
Yeah.
It absolutely is your 6-year-old child going, I'm really scared. Look at all these people. Because of you being shy as a child. And it's literally a case of, I hear you, I feel you, I've got you. It's okay, I've got you. Just be yourself. Don't be frightened. There's nothing to be frightened of.
Yeah.
And just talking to your younger self, because it's when we feel this fear and anxiety, it's our younger self that's feeling it.
Yeah.
But of course, it's expressing through us as we are now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. So I know we've been talking for a while and I want to give us a chance to wrap up because I appreciate your time. I've asked you a fair number of questions here. I'd love to give you a chance to pose a question to our audience.
Think from the work that I do, I would say, what is your body trying to tell you or ask of you? So take a moment and be with your body and just check in and find a space that maybe feels heavier or darker or lighter, or give it a shape or a color, but somewhere that feels different. And then ask that place, what is it that you need? Or what are you trying to tell me? And just listen.
Yeah. I like that. I've got a few spots in my body that I like. I've got this ongoing shoulder pain. I think I'm going to try to sit with that a little bit after the call to just see what it maybe is telling me. So I appreciate that question.
And is that your left side?
That is my left side.
So that's a feminine energy.
Okay.
And feminine energy is to do with either it's a lady that's causing you that issue, or it's to do with receiving, because feminine energy is about receiving, masculine energy is about giving. But also the shoulder is the weight of the world. Are you carrying the weight of the world?
Yeah. Got some of that.
What can you let go of?
I know I feel that sometimes, so I appreciate those insights. That's really helpful. I talk a lot about, how people can make the world of work better. And as we've been talking here, I think so much of what we're talking about is core to our experience of everything, including work. But if you could wave a magic wand and make the world fully desuckified for people, what does that world look like?
I would say that a desuckified world is a place where people don't have to be sick and burned out to get permission to change. That they're able to slow down themselves, come back into themselves, choose themselves, rather than continuing down the same route and burning out and getting sick.
I like the sound of that. I think certainly a lot of the folks that I am hearing from on LinkedIn and other places, burnout. There's a lot of burnout, and I'm sure there's the physical manifestations of that as you talk about. So now I want to have a little fun as we wrap up here. If you listen to my show, you'll hear a lot of sound effects. Most of the ones I like to do or bring in are cat sounds, meows, and that kind of stuff. I always invite the guests to share a sound. It can be anything. It definitely does not have to be cats. And if it has anything to do with the work you do, even better. So do you have a sound that you'd like to share, Sarah?
I do.
Okay.
And my sound would go.
Mm.
And it's our body exhaling, maybe for the first time, as we take that moment for ourselves.
It kind of always blows my mind. Like listening to you exhale takes away stress from me. Like that. I mean, I know it can do that for myself, but there's something just being with somebody who's experiencing that, and I don't know if that relates to our mirror neurons or something like that in our body, but there's something really magical about that. So I appreciate you sharing that. The last question I have for you, Sarah, is where can people find you online, learn more about your book, learn more about your coaching, all of that good stuff?
Thank you. I think straight to my website, www.sarahdawkins.com. Everything's on there.
Everything's there. Are you on LinkedIn at all?
I am, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll point people there too, just because a lot of my audience spends some time there. So that's another way to connect with you. I really appreciate this conversation, Sarah. This was enlightening to me personally. I know it will be as well to the audience. And I already feel like I have some fun homework to try in terms of connecting to my body a little more and listening to myself. And I encourage anyone listening to the show to maybe try a little bit for yourself as well and just start to see what shows up, because your work just feels like a wonderful invitation to a way of being that feels more aligned with who we all want to be.
My work brings people home to themselves.
I love that phrasing. But awesome. Well, thank you, Sarah. I look forward to continuing talking to you in the future.
Thank you, TJ. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and share with your audience.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the DesuckifyWork podcast. And a huge thanks to Sarah for bringing hope and healing to the show. You can follow Sarah on LinkedIn and check out her site at sarahdawkins.com, where you can learn more about her book and the amazing work she's doing. If you enjoyed the conversation and would like to find some calm in the chaos of work, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. Type meow in the calendar invite, and I'll also send you a free DesuckifyWork t-shirt. Bye, everyone.